If you feel like you're in a hamster wheel, putting in the work but never getting ahead. You're seeing the congratulations balloons on LinkedIn, the humble brag when someone gets a new job, a promotion, or starts a new business. And it makes you wonder, when is it your turn? You know that you want to achieve it too, but then it's really hard to figure it out. And you find yourself repeating the same pattern of self-doubt over and over again. Then this video is for you. I've been there. I spent years thinking that the key to success was working hard, saying yes to everything, and hoping someone would notice my effort. I'd get up at 4 a.m. and work until 10 p.m., traveling on weekends. And then I'd watch others who weren't even making the same sacrifices move forward in their career and achieve what they wanted. I used to ask myself why over and over until I finally discovered something that made it all make sense. I went from working entry-level government jobs eventually to Amazon and Netflix, and now I run my own business, including creating videos for this YouTube channel. Looking at everything I've achieved, it almost feels like I'm a completely different person. And along the way, I made choices that led me to where I am now. I'll explain each of these so that you can make progress and avoid the struggles that I went through. This video isn't about shortcuts to success. It's about creating lasting change, one step at a time, towards the version of a person you're proud to be. So let's do it. There's a book by Simone Stolzov called The Good Enough Job, which explores the idea that work doesn't have to define our entire life. It pushes back on the idea that work is the core of your identity, or that your value is solely tied to your job title or the hours that you work. I couldn't believe it when I read it. I thought that I needed the ideal job, the perfect circumstances, and the right moment to move forward. And I think one of the biggest transformations came when I realized that progress can be messy and imperfect. And that's okay. I was living in a world of perfectionism and control. And maybe you feel the same way, that if everything magically fell into place, that you'd be able to make progress. But waiting for that perfect moment, it keeps you from moving forward. It's like standing at the edge, wanting to jump, but hesitating because you're not sure if the timing is right. The truth is, you will never know unless you take the first step, even if it's not perfect, even if it's a bit messy. I think we can all design a brilliant life that we're proud of. It just doesn't have to define our entire being. This helped me realize that starting where you are, even if it feels good enough, is the key to making real progress. And that change in mindset, it completely changed the way I approach my career. I stopped asking, how do I make everything perfect? And I started asking, what's one step that I can make today that feels good enough? Because making steady progress, not chasing perfection, that's the way towards a sustainable career. This brings to my mind the concept of Kaizen, which means continuous improvement in Japanese. Kaizen is about making small, consistent improvements over time rather than waiting for the perfect moment or trying to overhaul everything at once. So instead of being overwhelmed by a big change, Kaizen encourages you to take manageable steps each day. There were so many things that helped me take those small steps. So for example, I started meditating, even though I only lasted for 2 minutes the first time I tried it. I listened to inspiring podcasts and eventually became a yoga teacher. It wasn't easy, but by practicing, I became just that little bit better. And then that led me to the concept of getting 1% better every day, as James Clear talks about in Atomic Habits. And this changed the way I thought about compounding tiny habits day after day. You don't need massive changes all at once, just 1% better consistently. So ask yourself this, what's one small thing that you can do today that feels good enough? It doesn't need to be a massive change, it's just something that helps you move forward. It's about making those small meaningful actions that help you design a career and a life that you're proud of. Because ultimately, growth isn't about one big defining moment. It's about small moments, one building on the next, until you suddenly realize that you're a lot further along than you thought. And this brings us to part 3. Stop confusing busyness with productivity. Have you ever had one of those days where you've worked so hard and at the end of the day, it just feels like you haven't achieved anything? I remember when my day would get scheduled with 30-minute meetings back to back. I barely had time to go to the bathroom. But you've got to remember that being busy isn't the same as being productive. And if you want to find the time to do the things that you love, you're going to have to focus. Because if you can focus, you can direct your energy to the things that really matter, rather than spreading yourself too thin. Focused work is what will help you prioritize and be productive. Without it, you get caught up with the busy work, the stuff that fills your schedule up, you know what I mean, but it doesn't actually move you forward. I've realized that I'm able to create the best videos for this channel, help my coaching clients, and have a successful business when I'm able to focus. In Johann Hari's book called Stolen Focus, he shares why you need to reclaim your focus, not just for productivity, but for the quality of the work, and so you also get a really good sense of fulfillment. This idea made me realize how important it was to create space for focused work. It wasn't easy, but I knew I had to make a change if I wanted to produce work that mattered. I started setting boundaries, minimizing distractions, and setting time to focus on just one thing at a time. The real breakthrough came when I started setting aside 90-minute blocks to work on the really important stuff. No distractions, no interruptions. These focused work sprints really changed how I worked. Suddenly, I was accomplishing more in less time and creating things that I was really proud of. So if you're struggling to focus, try this. Start your day by identifying your most important task. Block out 30 to 90 minutes for it. Turn off your notifications and just dive in. Now, I'm sure you already know that you need to do this. There's a reason that you clicked on the video because you know that there's something that you need to do to change your life. So give it a try, because it's not about working harder, it's about working smarter. So let's talk about habits. No, not the big flashy kind, but the small ones. There's a lot of books about habits, but I'm going to share my 2 favorites. First, B.J. Fogg, who wrote a book called Tiny Habits and talks about setting goals that are so small that they're impossible to fail. For example, if you want to journal, start with 1 sentence. If you want to exercise, start with a single stretch. And Gretchen Rubin's book, Better Than Before, adds another layer where it talks about how our personalities shape how we form habits. She suggests aligning habits with your natural tendencies to make them sustainable. And they both share that there's no shortcuts. The real change comes from small, consistent actions that align with who you are and what you care about. These habits might seem tiny, but they add up to create powerful results over time. It's about making the process sustainable by working with yourself rather than against yourself. Oh, I really like that. So, for example, B.J. Fogg mentioned that if you want to start a habit as simple as flossing your teeth, start by flossing just 1 tooth. This approach is about lowering the barrier so much that the habit becomes impossible not to do. And by doing just a little bit every day, you're both building the habit and you're building your confidence. You're proving to yourself that you can show up consistently, even for something small. And Gretchen Rubin adds to this by pointing out that if you can understand yourself, you can also understand how the habits work for you. So if you align your natural tendencies with your habits, then they're more likely to stick. For example, if you're someone who likes external accountability, it might be helpful for you to get a workout buddy or to join a workout class. And if you're a rebel, you might want to frame those habits as a way of asserting your independence or your freedom. The important thing is to find out what works for you and keep at it, even if progress is slow. Real change doesn't come from drastic moves. It comes from taking those little steps 1 day at a time. For me, journaling became my anchor habit. I started by writing just 1 sentence each morning, something simple that helped me organize my thoughts and reflect on my day. And over time, those short entries turned into paragraphs and then pages. And sometimes, depending on the day, I wrote many pages. It gave me clarity before important meetings. It helped me process challenges and then also set some intentions for the day ahead. So I feel like building habits that work is about keeping it simple and sustainable. It's about making those good enough changes, just like I mentioned earlier. Because when you embrace those small, consistent actions, you're not waiting for the perfect moment. You're actually doing it and making progress. For example, skill building isn't something that happens overnight. Whether it's mastering storytelling or strategic thinking, or even showing more empathy to your family, friends, and colleagues, it all just takes a little bit of time. And it's about showing up every day, putting the work in, and continuing to get better. I learned that being an effective storyteller meant that I had to show up consistently. So every meeting, every presentation, every speech, it was about practicing what I was learning. It didn't happen overnight, but I had to just keep practicing consistently. And it's not just about building skills, it's also about how you work. I've found that creating focused work time helps me better achieve my goals. Being able to focus deeply without distraction is what allows you to make real progress on those skills that matter most. So, what's one habit that you can start today that aligns with the skills that you want to develop or the focus that you want to have? All you have to do is make it small and manageable so that it's a stepping stone to the future you want to create. So just remember, the journey isn't about perfection. It's about persistence and finding the habits that make sense for you. And another thing that's really helped me to make changes in my life and career is to surround myself with people who make me better. You've probably heard the saying that goes something like, you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And maybe it's overused, but it's also true. Your environment shapes you in ways that you may not even notice until you take a step back. The people that you spend time with are either going to hold you back or they're going to push you forward. I learned this firsthand when I made a conscious choice about who I was going to let into my inner circle. And when I began surrounding myself with family and friends and colleagues who were on a similar path, they were ambitious and on a growth journey themselves, it totally changed my mindset. They brought such energy and determination and ambition that I felt it rubbing off on me even if I didn't want it to. Suddenly, the goals that I'd set for myself, those really big goals that you think you'll never be able to achieve, they somehow just became a bit more achievable. And these amazing friends of mine, they would do little things. They'd do things like sign me up for a 5K run or order a book and have it delivered to my house. And it just made all the difference in the world when I was surrounded with amazing people like this. These small gestures, they just made an incredible difference. They helped me see that growth doesn't have to be these big, giant leaps. They can just be little nudges, little tiny steps. Those little pushes, they keep you going when you feel like slowing down. And having those people around me made such a difference, especially on the days that I didn't believe in myself. And with these inner circles, it's not just about support, it's also being challenged. The right inner circle, there's no way that they're going to let you settle for mediocrity. They will push you to be better, aim to be higher, and keep pushing you when things get tough. That's why building a community, whether it's through mentors, peers, family, or friends, is just so important. It's not just about networking or making connections. It's about creating an environment that lifts you up. So think about who you spend your time with. Are they people who encourage you to level up? And if they're not, I hate to say it, but maybe you need to find people who will. Thank you so much for staying with me until the end of this video. I hope you found it helpful and that it sparks something for you. If you enjoyed this, I would love if you would subscribe so you can stay in the loop of any new content that I have coming out. My goal is to inspire and motivate you as you design a brilliant career and a brilliant life. Also, I send out a weekly newsletter where I share growth ideas, insights, and a little bit of the behind the scenes of my personal journey in growth. If that sounds like something that's interesting to you, I'd love if you join the community. Thanks again for watching, and remember that success happens step by step, one day at a time. See you in the next video.